At 4ZZZ, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we broadcast. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Turrbal and Jagera people. We acknowledge that their sovereignty over this land was never ceded.
And we stand in solidarity with them.
You're listening to Tranzmission on 4ZZZ, amplifying the trans and gender non-conforming voices of Brisbane and beyond.
Hello, Meanjin. You're listening to Tranzmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Ez. I use he, him pronouns.
My name is Ray. I use they, them pronouns.
And we got some literary stuff going on today, don't we?
We have a lot of literary stuff.
Literary stuff. Title of the episode.
Ray's literary stuff. Yeah, I'm very thrilled. I did an interview recently with local author A.K. Mulford. So I'm going to be chatting with them a bit later on. And we're also going to be chatting about incredible poet Andrea Gibson. Yes.
Andrea, tragically, is no longer with us. However, maybe more with us than they ever were before, which is a beautiful sentiment. And we're going to read a couple of poems from Andrea Gibson, excerpts, bits.
Poem fragments.
Fragments of poem. Fragments of bits of words of things.
That in and of itself is a poem.
And you selected a couple that you liked. You want to read one of yours and I'll read one of mine?
Yeah, I'm going to read... Well, you said that they're with us more than they ever have been. And I think that is really poignant because that is kind of the crux of the poem that they wrote a number of years ago that they put up on their Substack newsletter, which was Love Letter from the Afterlife, which has recently kind of gone viral. There was a video of them reading it to their wife. And the excerpt from the start of the poem is, "My love, I was so wrong. Dying is the opposite of leaving. When I left my body, I did not go away. That portal of light was not a portal to elsewhere, but a portal to here. I am more here than I ever was before."
Oh, gets me every time.
It really does.
And the full poem's also amazing as well.
The full poem is incredible, yeah, definitely. And check out their work. Start, going to your library and requesting Andrea Gibson's work, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We'll put all the information for that in the 4ZZZ AMRAP page, so you can click and check out all of Andrea Gibson's stuff too, and we'll put it in the podcast notes as well. So, yeah. This one that I've got here is not more to do with feminist rage.
Good.
Good. Very good. Start your Tuesday right. This one is, any feminist who has ever taken the high road will tell you the high road gets backed up, and sometimes we need to take a detour straight through the belly of uncensored rage.
I was like, I will take your feminist rage and read some lines from the poem "I Sing the Body Electric, especially when my power is out," which is, "My mouth is a fire escape. The words coming out don't know that they are naked. There is something burning in there." Oh, I love that. Okay, all right. Okay, damn. Okay, now I'm trying to another one. I'm like, which one do I want? I was like, yeah, best me, let's go.
This is a really short one, but I quite like this. "We have to create. It is the only thing louder than destruction."
Which I think about a lot in our current time. I think that creating is incredibly, incredibly important, especially creating poetry, creating things, any kind of art form, creating music. There is a quote from Andrea's poem "First Love." "We'd gone so many years without music that knew us. Music that knew you could arch your back, and I'd have proof that the earth was round."
Oh, beautiful. Oh my goodness. Andrea, rest in power. We send you lots of love. I'm sure they're with us all the time. So
absolutely, and I think the more people read their work and are inspired by their work, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Amplifying the voices of the trans and gender non-conforming community of Meanjin, Brisbane, and beyond.
Tranzmission on 4ZZZ brings you the latest in trans community news, music, and events.
every Tuesday from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m.
Join our team of hosts for an hour of celebrating the unique perspectives of the trans community.
Transmission, Tuesday mornings from 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ. You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Ez, I use he, him pronouns.
And my name is Ray. I use they, them pronouns. And I'm going to now play a pre-recorded interview for you with the amazing author A.K. Mulford, they, she pronouns, who is a best-selling fantasy romance author with books published in 12 languages worldwide, both traditionally and self-published. Go off. Love it. Mulford loves writing adventurous and feel-good tales with lovable and diverse characters. They also write cozy and spicy romantic comedies under the pen name Ali K. Mulford. A US and New Zealand citizen, AK now lives in sunny Australia with their partner, kids, troublemaker cats, and a very patient dog. Hello everyone, my name is Ray, I use they, them pronouns, and today I am joined by an incredible author. Do you want to introduce yourself, your pronouns, and maybe a bit about your work?
Sure, I'm A.K. Mulford, my pronouns are they, she, and I write both fantasy romance and romantic comedies. So I'm a hybrid author, meaning I'm both traditionally published and self-published across both of those pen names. And I'm excited to be chatting with you today.
I'm so pumped. I love the fact that you're both traditionally published and self-published. I guess an industry question, is that something that a conscious choice, a genre choice?
It's actually something I kind of set out to do from very early on. I'd always been writing my whole life and always thinking about being an author, but thought it wasn't a realistic career pursuit. And so I went into the sciences instead and was a wildlife biologist for many years with a particular interest in primatology and the study of primates.
I love that.
So, yeah, as one does. And then I also majored in classical civilizations as well because I needed to get my mythology on, so. But in the background, I was always writing stories. Even as a young kid filling notebooks and notebooks, I would be the kid at summer camp, like under a tree, filling notebooks of stories and not wanting to join the kickball game. But I just thought that it wasn't practical. Nobody I knew, especially nobody that was like me, was publishing. And so I couldn't really see myself in the industry. But then, as I got older, self-publishing became more of an option. In my conservation job, I was sitting at my desk, taking notes on what my 5-year plan would be if ever I was publishing one day. But didn't think I would do it, but I always knew if I ever did bite the bullet and actually publish something, I'd want to start self-publishing and eventually become hybrid and have some books traditionally published too, because, well, the biggest reason was all of the studies at the time were showing hybrid authors made the most money. And for me, I thought, okay, well, that's the most sensible thing to do for a career path then, is to do a little bit of both. But also I'm classic ADHD, I'm a dabbler. I like to have my eggs in lots of different baskets. And so for me, I thought, I want to experiment with everything and try all of the different publishing paths. So that was a conscious choice from very early on.
Yeah, that's relatable. Like, I do traditional published books, but I also have zines, and then I make games, and I do and just 20 different things, because I also feel like if you're working in the creative scene, it's really hard to kind of have just one income stream as well. We can always talk about that a bit later, because I do want to pick your brain on if someone does want to get published, what your thoughts are. But let's talk about your work a bit more first. Tell me a bit more about your books. As you said, you write fantasy as well as rom-com. Tell me a bit about both of those.
So I started off writing fantasy. My first book, The High Mountain Court, was kind of loosely based on a dream I had, an anxiety dream. And then I started building the world around that. And slowly it became, I fell in love with all the side characters. I wanted all of them to have their own romances too. And it slowly spawned into a 5-book series. And so I self-published the first 2 books in that series, and then the series got picked up and is now published by Harper Voyager. And it was picked up around the same time I was selling my new series, the Golden Court trilogy. The 3rd book is about to come out in that. And that is a genderqueer wolf shifter romantasy series. And all of the book covers are different pride flag covers. The US covers, the UK and Australia covers I still have some of the color elements in them, but are slightly different.
I was going to
yeah,
ask actually about how,
pitch.
like, talk to me about like representation in your books. And I'm like, you're already there. I love it. Anyway, sorry, keep going.
I was like, I don't do subtle. I'm like, put them right on the covers. Like, if you look at this series and don't see that it's queer, I can't help you. I think it's fun though when it surprises people, because it is a little metaphor for gender fluidity and queerness, that series. So I think some people get pretty far into it before they're like, wait a second. I thought this was about wolf shifters. It's actually about turfs.
We love to see it.
But anyway, so those are my fantasy series. And I have a brand new book coming out with Harper Voyager next year. It's going to be the first book in a new trilogy called Dreamslayer. That is a dark sapphic fantasy. Basically, a dream falls in love with a nightmare and they have to journey out of hell together. And it is very dark and twisty, and I can't wait to share it with people.
Oh my God. As someone who goes to both a queer book group and a science fiction fantasy book group, I'm going to tell everyone we'll be your biggest fans.
Hey, everyone. Come see my book.
Check out this queer content.
Yes, I can't get enough, I want to write all the stories that I just want to exist in the world and want to read myself. And then my romantic comedies are more for a lighthearted reprieve from my heavy fantasy world building. So because I used to be a wildlife biologist, I wrote a zookeeper rom-com series about this family of zookeepers in this quirky little zoo off the coast of Connecticut in the States on this little island, and lots of found family. All of the siblings are queer and neurodivergent, which, if you've ever worked in a zoo, is, tracks. It's very honest to real life. So I'm working on the 5th book in that series right now, which is called Hold Your Horses, and it's an ace love story. And I'm having so much fun with it. And the main character, Heron, is trans femme and is kind of coming into their asexuality. And the love interest is an autistic character who's lying about being a horse girl from Wyoming, and just shenanigans ensue. And so, I'm loving writing their book right now. And then that pen name, I also co-author a cozy paranormal series. The first book's called Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist, and it's a cozy sapphic paranormal rom-com. And the second book is also cozy sapphic, and it's called Curtains and Cold Brew, and that's coming out in September. And I'm very excited about that. Basically, a witch makes a deal with a very sexy, like, suit mommy demon, and shenanigans ensue.
I love shenanigans. I feel like that is often the basis of beautiful rom-coms, like especially queer rom-coms. There's always some shenanigans and some things where I'm like, and I'm often just like reading them being like, oh no, am I cringing or am I a little bit flustered? Like, I love it so much.
All of like the awkwardness of like heightened reality, at least for most of the people I know, is very true to life. All of the panic spirals we go into in our own minds when we're falling in love, I think, is very true.
I was going to say, I often have a queer panic spiral, and I feel like, I don't know if it's like queer culture or not, whether or not like our lives are kind of, I don't know, I always feel like mine's quite heightened and everything's, often like a little bit chaotic, a little bit more full color. Sorry to any straights listening to this. You too can be queer. It's like, read some of A.K. Mulford's work.
Actually, it's funny how many people I've had message me over the years and say, I didn't think that I was, gay or bi or pan or ace or non-binary or whatever it may be. But reading this book has made me think things. I always reply like, "I'm sorry?" question mark or "Congratulations."
It's like both
I'm both
things.
sorry and welcome.
It's like both things are true at once. Condolences and congratulations. I was going to say, yeah, like how have readers come to your work and related to your work?
I think more and more I'm finding like a queer first audience, you know, whereas like my first few books, I feel like the queerness was more in the subtext than like very
Yeah.
front and center. And so it was really interesting having people kind of dive into the world from that angle and then starting to see themselves like more and more in the context of the story and maybe questioning themselves or even just saying like, I feel like I understand my friend more. I feel like I, you know, can relate to people more deeply through these characters and their friendships. But then also now more and more too, having people who are seeking out my stories because of the representation in them and being so excited that they get to be the protagonist of the story and not just the queer best friend. And so that's
God,
like
yeah.
hugely cool to me as someone who, you know, I grew up being like Lord of the Rings nerd and was like, I don't see myself in any character in this book, but I love it so dearly. And I wish I was in here and my relationships were in here and my friendships were in here. And so definitely a big propeller for me into the stories that I write now was you're all coming with me. We're all getting our own books.
Yeah, because as you said, like, yeah, you want to be writing the books that you want to see in the world, which is a beautiful thing. And I feel like that, I'm not sure if that's one of the main motivations in terms of like propelling you to write an exorbitant amount of books. Like you're
Yeah,
extremely
too many, some might say.
you're extremely swift. I thought I wrote real fast, but I'm so impressed. Yeah, I was gonna say, tell me about your writing process. If you've got any tips for like listeners who are keen to write their own stories and get them out in the world.
Well, I've published 26 books in the last 4.5 years. I'm working on
Yeah,
my
cool. That's
34th.
so many.
But, you know, I write more than I want to publish. So I have more books that I'm sitting on for, it might be out in 3, 4 years from now. But for me, I was not always this way. I spent decades with a graveyard of shiny object projects that I got 10,000 words into and then abandoned forever. And literally, since I was a kid, decades of my life of doing this and never getting to the end of a book. And at the time, you know, I wasn't diagnosed as autistic or ADHD until my eldest child was. So I was in my 30s by the time that I even started to wrap my head around it. And now, of course, looking back at my entire life, I was like, oh, wow, that was very clear, very obvious now. But of course, at the time, you know, how little we knew. And it really wasn't until I learned every bit of writing advice, right? I read every book and everything and absorbed all of it and felt very disconnected to all of it. And I think like a lot of neurodivergent people felt very broke that I couldn't replicate the process and routines of these successful writers who are giving this advice. And so it wasn't until I finally kind of threw that out and said, what would I do if I was doing it the right way for me? You know, let go of all of the, I should do it this way, or you have to write this ways. And for me, you know, working with an ADHD coach and different coaches and therapists and doctors and things, started to amalgamate my own writing process, one that was very neuroaffirming, you know, that had lots of body doubling and lots of external ability, lots of shiny objects and rewards. And for me, I found I was much better at seizing upon that hyperfocus and doing a lot very quickly and then leaving it to rest for a while and coming back and very quickly again, than doing a little bit each day.
Yeah.
That was something. And I should also say I homeschool 2 kids. I'm also, you know, I've got a lot going on. So for me, it was much easier to squirrel away 2 or 3 days straight to like fast draft like the first half of a book than it was for me to do half an hour every day, which is what I thought I should be. You know, it's what everybody tells you to be doing. And that you just need routines and consistency and things that ADHD brains are allergic to. You know, I don't know routines. I don't like routines. I don't perform well. And I'd rather do a lot to the point where some might say too much to everybody else very quickly and then take a break and rest and recover than try and motivate myself to do a little bit each day. So that's what I do. I've started a little writing challenge called the 3-day 30K, which is you don't have to do 30,000 words. That's the big goal. There's actually, it's all fantasy themed. So there's little adventures. You can choose like the Bard's Adventure is like 6,000 words over 3 days. And like the Hero's Gauntlet is like 21K over 3 days. And so people choose their own adventures, and there's a little quest map. It's very nerdy and neuro-affirming in a glorious way. And so we all get together and do writing sprints and cheer each other on and do 3 intensive days of writing. And then we take a break for 3 months, and then we do 3 more intensive days. And I feel like for a lot of writers who are, you know, working full time, who are parents, who are juggling like a million other things, the idea of trying to write every day is so daunting, but it's much more feasible to be like, hey, how about we set aside like 3 long weekends a year and just focus deeply on writing for those times. And then between those times, we can noodle on our manuscript when we have the spoons for it, and when we don't, we're kind to ourselves about it. And I think that that has been really beautiful, actually, seeing how many people have really like resonated with a different style of writing. So
yeah, and I feel like I'm just thinking, because whenever I've done things like NaNoWriMo, rest in peace, over that time, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. This is a short period of time for me to work on a book. And then you realize how long it is. Then you realize you have to do it every day. And then as soon as you miss a day, I'm like, well, I failed as a writer, as a person. Whereas like smashing out a book in a week, I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Nano was too long for me, honestly. Like I usually do more than that per month anyway in a shorter amount of time. So actually it was slowing me down and demotivating me in a way. But also I feel like I'm the sort of person who can only sustain the novelty part of my motivation, my ADHD motivation, for about 3 days. I'm the sort of person who buys a journal and I'm like, I'm going to write in this every day. And then 3 days later, I abandon it and I never use it again. With so many hobbies and different things. Oh my God.
And I like how there's like a graveyard of half written in notebooks.
Oh, so many. And I'm trying to make myself go back and like use other pages of them. But it's, you know, I do that with my writing as well. But so yeah, for me, 3 days is about the magic number of how much I can be really excited about something before other motivators need to kick in. And people with ADHD obviously can do nano and other like longer challenges because they can rely on other things to keep them going. But I do feel like we also have a much more acute sense of failure and failing. Yeah. You know, most people, most neurotypical people, if they don't hit their challenge goal, they're like, oh, well, I'll try again next time. Whereas, right? And whereas we internalize that as like, well, I can't do anything right. I'm a failure. I'm always disappointing myself. You know, all of these things. And so it makes it much harder to show back up again because we've added all those layers on top of ourselves. So
it's all this like kind of like internalized pressure. And like, I feel like a lot of like those kind of books and workshops when I was at uni and stuff, like, this is how you write. This is how you should be performing as a writer to get your work out there. And you're like, oh God. It's not only daunting, but it's also putting that added pressure on yourself. And it's a lot. I'm not about it.
Yeah. Well, you think of how many pieces of writing is, well, you sit in your garden at 10 a.m. every day and your wife brings you a cup of tea and you know, what world was this in? And, you know, and obviously someone who's not carrying the majority of the domestic labor in their house, who isn't making a lot of decisions for other people, a carer or other things, or if you have a job where you're making lots of choices all day long, at the end of the day, trying to say, okay, it's 9 o'clock. I really just want to like binge watch some Dropout TV and chill out for a bit. Right. But instead, I have to write for an hour.
Like, I'm going to write 1,000 words. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah, because I homeschool and have this need for efficiency very much. For me, it takes me about half an hour to get into flow each time I sit down and write. So if I'm writing for an hour each day, I'm only getting half an hour of that time. But if I write for 7 hours one day, I get 6.5 hours of flow state. Yeah. For me, it's actually much more efficient to do a lot in one go than a little bit ongoing.
And I feel like, yeah, if there's, you know, people listening that are like, oh my God, that's me. Try that method because, you know, you only kind of know what works for you if you try it. It is unfortunately a lot of the time, I guess, often about failing or like, you know, just having things just not work for you and then you can try something else.
Even if it's not your jam to do ongoing, I think doing this once for 3 days, it's such a condensed challenge that all of your hurdles and mental blocks become really apparent really quickly. And I think that that's useful ongoing, whether you do intensive writing challenges or not. Just being able to see, oh, okay, this time of day every day is a hard sticking point for me. Whenever I get to this place in my book, I struggle. And you can see all the things that are in your way a little bit easier and the things that help you go faster. And so then you can make notes of that and reflect on that and then use that ongoing regardless of how you write. So I feel like it's kind of my lot in life. Like my goal as an author is to just go around giving people permission to do things differently and do things in the way that works for them.
Which I feel is for a lot of listeners, I reckon that resonates because, you know, for people who are queer and trans and gender diverse, and then also, you know, the Venn diagram of being neurospicy in some way, like a lot of the advice just does not stick. Being given permission to be yourself is a lot more valuable. And I was going to say, if people do want to join the writing challenge and read your books, of course, tell me, like...
Yeah, I can share my link with you and all of the things, or you can go to akmulford.com and all of the goodies are on there as well.
I will make sure that we put that in the show description and all that kind of jazz, because that would be amazing. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered, especially things that you're up to next? Because I know that Pumpkin Spice just came out. Yeah, what else is happening in your world?
Yeah, we've got a lot going on at the end of the book two in the Pumpkin Spice world called Curses and Cold Brew is coming out in September. And the third book of the Golden Court trilogy, A Heart of Crimson Flames, is coming out in November, December, depending on where you are in the world. And then I've got Dreamslayer, the new book, coming out next year. Lots of exciting things going on. And I'm also working on a little companion book to the 3-day 30K challenge. Basically, I haven't settled on the title yet. I'm thinking I'm going to call it The Chaotic Writer's Guide to Hitting the End. So for all I feel like, you know, all of the writing books that you see in like the storefront are all just very neurotypical, like very aggressively neurotypical. I want something that people see and go, yep, that one's for me, you know?
Like, oh my God, it's so many colors. The covers, all the pride flags. I think that might be me. I love that so much. I'm very excited. Hopefully there's a lot of listeners who will go and grab your books in stores and in libraries. Support your local library. We love libraries.
I just got back from Wellington, New Zealand, and Wellington Library. I snuck some of my bookmarks into my books there as like a little, hopefully somebody finds them, and it's the best.
I love that. I saw that on your TikTok. So yes, please follow AK Mulford on TikTok. I think your TikToks are hilarious and amazing and very, very affirming.
Just being a goofball. I think that's my favorite form of marketing.
I mean, honestly, I feel like marketing is so often, it's just such a hot mess. And it's so like, what can I do to be myself at the same time as promoting the work that I'm passionate about? It's a difficult balance.
Totally. Yeah.
Thank you so much for chatting with me today. And
thank you for having me.
You're listening to Tranzmission on 4ZZZ. We're about to bounce out of here. Thank you, Ray, for that interview with AK Mulford. That was awesome.
It was so great to chat with them.
See you all next week. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Tranzmission. See you next Tuesday, 9 to 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ.